You are now entering Clearview, Illinois. The name of this tale is Moon Children. Sisil lived in a modest home that was slightly isolated from the others in the area. It was integrated into the forest with fences keeping the overgrowth at bay. There was only a small cobblestone road that led to her abode, like a hidden place in a fairy tale. Sisil did her nightly ritual of checking every room in the house and every door, ending her journey in the dining room to give her herb garden and chicken coop a peek. As she passed through the darkened dining room, bathed in midnight, she heard a gentle ruckus coming from the coop. Sisil went to her closet, assuming it was coyotes. She loaded the shotgun nestled behind the coats. If she fired a round in the air, it would be enough to scare the average coyote away. Sisil marched through her backyard garden in robes and sandals, lugging a weapon that was bigger than her. The rustling rattled the whole of the little shack to its foundations until it stopped without warning or explanation. Sisil only now began to become nervous because coyotes, unless it was an unusual amount of them, didn't have the strength to do what was done. The mere fact that it stopped meant that whatever it was heard something and was baiting out her next move. She secured the shotgun in the crook of her neck on her right side, then slowly and cautiously reached for the door of the wooden shack. The night made a collective inhale. She pulled the door. A huge beast that was the size of the shed itself crouched in darkness. Its fur was black as the shadow it found itself draped in, and the only distinctive feature it possessed were the stark red eyes that stared through her. To any objective observer, common sense would have you believe this unholy menace would send Sisil fleeing for her life in fear. But the sense of Clearview was rarely ever common. Sisil pulled the trigger. Buckshot exploded into the shadow. The beast snarled and pounced Sisil. The force of the motion sent shockwaves through the air that threatened to collapse the humble coop. The beast shimmered a bright black, reflecting the moonlight. Though huge and monstrous, it moved so fast it nearly appeared in strobing snapshots. Sisil moved with an impressive speed of her own and backed up. She managed to fire another explosive shot. Blood sprayed the flimsy wood. The monstrous beast snapped down in hopes of ripping Sisil's head off, but she raised the barrel of her shotgun, blocking the monster's bite. With a strength that would seem impossible to all but the strongest men on the planet, Sisil whipped her waist and spun whilst the creature's jaws were locked on her shotgun barrel. She flung the massive ball of fur, fury and frenzy, gun and all. The beast pinwheeled through her herb garden until its claws clamped in dirt, steadying it. Sisil's eyes flared with murderous intent and transformed subtly from human and round to jaundiced predatory slits.
Elijah?
Sisil said in a voice more bass-filled and primal than something merely human. The hulking shadow beast's size slowly decreased like a muscle that had untensed. Its snout became something more blunt and manlike, but not close enough to pass.
Sisil?
The beast replied.
Why did you attack me?
Sisil asked in a voice that leveled back to its usual calm undercurrent. I didn't, you shot me, said the once monster whose shape lessened to that of a wiry, ebony-skinned black man in his 30s. Sisil thought for a moment and conceded his point with a head nod. You've grown, said the wiry black man who was completely nude. Sisil turned back towards her house and flung her robe to Elijah. After putting on the ill-fitting clothes, he followed her to the house. Where are Mason, Falcon, and Cullen? Elijah said while inspecting Sisil's humble abode as if anything could be danger. Mason and Falcon are dead, and Cullen, well, she hasn't been reachable for a while. I thought you were locked away for 50 years, said Sisil with a question of her own. I escaped. I could have escaped nearly at any point in time. I just didn't want to have to slaughter a horde of humans to do it. Sisil opened the refrigerator in her darkened house, instantly reaching for Tupperware. What changed? Sisil questioned. Clearview was out of balance, Sisil chuckled. Has it ever really been in? Elijah smirked and clarified. Out of balance for Clearview. I do not know if I could have shown the level of restraint you did. How many needless years did you serve in that hell? 9 years, Elijah explained. If I didn't show restraint, how would I show the pack that we could? I was too young to affect the outcome, but the pack spoke of breaking you out often. Elijah smirked as if he was pleased that they cared. I asked them not to. Sisil put a massive amount of pot roast from her Tupperware into the microwave. Elijah sat cross-legged in a wooden dining room chair. What have you been doing in the years I was gone? Asked Elijah. I have been teaching kindergarten. And? For the most part, that's it. I will destroy pockets of corruption when I cross his path, but I haven't dedicated myself to it. This is what you were born to do. Why haven't you dedicated yourself to the destruction of the world? Sisil scoffed. You were gone, living in jail for some sort of high-minded ideals while the pack fell apart. I do not need a lecture from you now. I needed it then. The silence in the room was palpable. The stark ding of the microwave broke the tension. Sisil put the pot roast on a plate and gave Elijah a knife and fork. This is so you don't eat any more of my chickens. Elijah looked at Sisil a moment as if calculating the correct way to proceed. When he went to jail years ago, Sisil barely experienced her first moon. To her, he was more a distant memory than a pack member. To her, the idea of pack was more theoretical than actual. He ate the meat. He chewed in silence. You are right. I do not have the right to judge you. I was barely pack leader to you then, and I may not be nothing to you now. Thank you for your hospitality, said Elijah. He stood up and handed Sisil her robe back. He turned to face the light of the moon. Sisil began to take off her pajamas. She nodded to Elijah in silent acknowledgement that she had shirked her duties and should make amends. Elijah's bones quickly cracked and his muscles expanded until black fur dotted and then grew out of his skin. He ran while the metamorphosis took place, changing his gait from man to beast. Sisil mirrored Elijah's transformation. She was a mid-20-something white woman that became a hulking 10-foot werebeast plodding through the quiet forest. Sisil had to admit it felt good to run again as her nature intended. Even after years of neglect, her wolf instincts hadn't abandoned her. Elijah led the way, guided by his nose, in essence smelling the corruption that threatened the balance of nature. The two werewolves stopped in front of a house of no apparent consequence, still in the brush, but looking out to civilization. Elijah growled low, but spoke in the language of the moon children. Be ready for anything, Sisil growled back in affirmation. The two wolves stopped in the forest. They braced themselves to face a greater corruption, something unnatural to this world. The two beasts slowly looked up and saw a small monkey in a tree, tossing candy at them, using a human skull as a bowl. Elijah's predatory eyes squinted, then softened. He chuffed in the closest thing a wolf could vocalize as a laugh. This was not the grand evil they sought. No, this was just something bizarre enough to remind him he was definitely back in Clearview. You are now exiting Clearview, Illinois. Hope you enjoyed the trip.